Good morning, everyone. Steve Crosby here. Welcome to this edition of Monday Morning Musings, where we are continuing on in our excursion into the misuse and abuse of Matthew 18. We left you off at about this place, that when Matthew 18 speaks of trespasses and ought against, it's not talking about individual personal feelings. It's a context about my behavior affecting the community. It's not about the interpersonal injustice. The interpersonal injustice, which we're going to get to in a minute, is a subset about the maintenance of shalom in the community. Look, you and I have no concern or concept of whether or not my behavior is affecting my church. Look, as long as we have great preaching, a hot worship team, good ministry for the children, everything's fine. And whether, I have a falling out with a brother, well, that's between me and the brother. We have no frame of context that my falling out with a brother results in a loss to the community. So Matthew 18 is all about the welfare of the community. And this is going to get very important when we get to some of Jesus's later sayings. And the issues are the closest thing that we would have are like civil offenses, major offenses. When it speaks about trespass or ought against, we're talking about 10 Commandments stuff. We're talking about theft, lying, slander, libel, cheating, adultery, criminal almost. Some of these would be criminal or civil offenses. It's got nothing to do with applying Matthew 18 to our perceived psychological damage. That phrase, that universe, simply did not exist in their time and space. They would have never thought of it that way. Some interpersonal offenses should be and can be simply handled by simply forgiving someone, choosing to remove that unkind word or that slight or that indifferent attitude. You just remove it. It's not the same as if that person stole your donkey, stole your wife, robbed your field of grain or fruit. And we need to understand that the latter is the context of Matthew 18. It had to do with measurable loss. Your and my interior feelings are not measurable. They can be real, they can be wounding, but they're not quantifiable. Well, you hurt my feelings. Well, how much did I hurt your feelings? And what loss did you suffer? Well, I lost my sense of well-being. That's not what this is talking about. Our culture is a self-esteem, self-awareness, ego, individualistic, need-centered culture. Theirs was not. It was always about the welfare of the community first over the welfare of the individual. Now, if you have a misunderstanding or a situation where there are two sides of a story, there might be general wisdom, and I believe there is, in to resolve those issues as quickly as possible with direct conversation. Not secondhand stuff, direct conversation, mediated as necessary. But this passage cannot be used as a grid through which every issue in a community has to pass through. that simply is a misuse and abuse of this passage. Matthew 18 cannot function in a climate of perpetual self-perceived psychological issues. That's a swamp. There's always going to be somebody who's been out of shape inwardly. If you use Matthew 18 as a template to deal with those issues, you will end up in a police state. Promise you, I've seen it happen. I guarantee it. If you apply this passage in a Western individualistic way, that will be the outcome. Now, for example, a lot of Christians' marriage counseling stuff is saturated. Well, you have to meet one another's needs. Now, what explicit scripture in the New Testament talks about meeting one another's needs? Well, I have needs, I have needs, I have needs. None. It's an inference that we draw from loving one another. Now, whether or not that is a valid inference, I believe is arguable. I believe as a species in the West, we are altogether entirely too self-centered and too fragile. Well, to have a good marriage, you need to have date night on a weekly basis. Now, what scripture says that? None. Could it be general wisdom? Yes. Based on the personality, the temperaments of the individuals involved? Could it be a sign of love to pay attention to how different people are configured and what is important to them? Yes. Could it be a demonstration of a giving of myself, a giving away of my ego as I meet somebody else's needs? Yes. And it has nothing to do with Matthew 18. It has to do with living intelligently as a human being. I have no right to be offended in interpersonal dynamics when there is not advanced mutual agreement to the expectations. You cannot meet an unarticulated expectation. If somebody doesn't know, for example, that maybe the love language stuff, that gift giving is important to you, and you're expecting them to read your mind, and it's not important to them, if you don't express it in an articulated expectation, you just get, they missed my birthday and I didn't get anything. How could anybody be so insensitive? That's your problem. Did you expressly articulate an expectation? Because now you're going to judge that person for letting you down. Now you have a wound. Oh, I'm wounded. And we live in a world of emotive presumptions. And we don't like direct conversation. And we don't like confrontational conversations. You cannot read the Gospels, particularly, and the epistles to the lesser degree, and see that they existed in a world of direct confrontation. We want to beat around the bush and be subtle. We don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, etc., etc., etc. So, if I get offended by things for which there is no biblical mandate, and if I have not done the hard work of conversationally establishing the articulated expectation that has been agreed to, my offense is illegitimate. Doesn't matter what you think, doesn't matter what you feel, doesn't matter how you hurt. All you are doing is projecting your own insecure soul needs and wounds onto another person. And then if you try to layer Matthew 18 on top of this, it's just another violation. And it becomes an extortive and exploitative manipulation of Scripture to try to make somebody else look bad because they've let you down in some way. All right, it's already been 10 minutes. That's got to be enough for today. I'll pick it up with you the next time. See you next time.